afternoon, Silkstone. I hope you had a lovely weekend. It's been great to see some work coming through from the online learning. I've seen some lovely writing, particularly I've seen Shen's in 5E. So I'd be really happy to see some of that writing and some work. If you'd like to send that through to me with email, that would be lovely. Okay, today we're reading chapter 4. We finished chapter 3 where Shelley was visiting the hostel and got to use the hostel's pool. And we soon discovered that Ben at the hostel was very fearful of water. Let's see what happens in chapter 4. The bags of vegetables were heavy and Shelley was indignant with self-pity when she got home with them. Peter and Weise never had to do any household shopping. She dumped the bags on the table and didn't offer to take the things out and put them away. The greengrocer had included a glossy calendar as a goodwill gift. It fell out and rolled across the kitchen floor. The pictures were all of improbably magnificent seascapes, the last one of a surfboard rider poised on the crest of a wave. Shelley prepared to put the calendar in with the wastepaper collection. "It's a waste to throw it out," Anne said. "Give it to Mrs. Murray when she comes back from Albury." She was busy making paper streamers and Chinese lanterns, trying to do a million things at once. "They're to decorate the hostel tonight," she said. "We're having a disco party." Shelley didn't want to hear about those freaks pretending to act like normal people. The whole idea of a disco was sick. "Can I borrow some of your cassettes?" Anne asked, putting the finished streamers into a carton. "My cassettes?" Shelley demanded, flaring. "I don't want their greasy fingerprints all over my cassettes. Thanks very much." "Shelley, I wish you wouldn't be. I had to save and save to get those cassettes. Why don't you pack up all my clothes too, all of my things if it comes to that, and give the whole lot to those retards?" "Shelley, why don't you just move in with them permanently? You're so wrapped up in spending all your time over there. You like them more than you like me, that's for sure. You don't even care about my holidays being all mucked up." She expected her mum to blaze right back at her, but Anne looked at her steadily for a long moment and said in a tired voice, with no anger in it, "Shelley, why don't you grow up?" Shelley went off and slammed the door of her room to disguise her shame, but the shame grew and grew to unbearable proportions. She still had the calendar in her hand. She picked up a texter and printed "Ben" in vicious letters underneath the picture of the surfboard rider as a sort of mean little joke. Then the shame rushed all through her, and scarcely aware of doing so, she made a few clumsy party hats out of the rest of the calendar pictures and went into the kitchen. She put the hats in with the streamers and balloons, not saying anything or looking at her mother. When they got to the hostel, Anne was immediately surrounded in the foyer by people all babbling excitedly about the disco. Shelley slipped away down the corridor before any of them could touch her or greet her in any way whatsoever. She got the key from the nurse's desk and felt someone breathing down her neck. She ignored him and opened the door to the pool. "Jelly drown," Ben said mournfully. "I better come too." "Listen, you," she hissed through her teeth, then stopped because the nurse was looking at them both from her desk. "It's okay, Shelley," said the nurse. "He'll just sit on the bench by the pool. When he gets tired of it, he can open the door from that side and come back out again. Can't you, Ben? He won't go anywhere near the water. Goodness knows, we've all tried hard enough to coax him, but he just won't." Shelley, fuming, barged ahead of him and got changed in the changing room. When she came out, Ben was sitting on the bench under the window. Edgy with anxiety, he watched everything she did in the pool. Shelley dropped hints about the disco and what he was missing out on, but he didn't go away. He just sat on the bench with his feet drawn up well away from any splashing and watched over her. After a while, he began to sing. Shelley found it excruciating. She couldn't make out the words and his voice was strident and off-key. Every few minutes he stopped and told her she had to clap and looked terribly hurt when she didn't. "Your singing is just about on the same level as your swimming," she said nastily. Ben obviously didn't understand, thinking it was a compliment. Shelley put her fingers in her ears and thought wildly of ways to stop him singing. She suddenly remembered the surf calendar picture, which she hadn't made up into a paper hat in case Anne noticed the writing on it. She'd stuffed that one guiltily into her beach bag. She scrambled out of the pool and thrust the glossy picture under Ben's nose. He stopped singing and looked at it. "It's a picture of you," she said. "See, it's written underneath. B-E-N spells Ben." Ben's eyes widened. "And the rest of the writing underneath says you've got to go swimming in the pool." Shelley finished craftily, hoping it would scare him away, back to that travesty of a disco where he belonged with those other shattered people. But he didn't go. He was suddenly too panic-stricken. He dropped the calendar picture as though it were red hot, backed into a corner of the bench and wrapped his arms about his head. "Ben drowned," he whispered in anguish and began to cry. Shelley stared at him, beginning to panic a little at being on her own. She wondered if she should ring the emergency bell on the wall and get a nurse to take him away, but she was scared of being scolded for upsetting him. He had to shut up. Anyone might hear the racket he was making and come to investigate, and she'd get into strife. "It's okay," she said. "Hey, listen, don't cry. You have to be a surfie like that guy in the picture." "Not if you don't want to." She tugged his hands away from his face and looked in consternation at the flowing tears. Clumsily, she dabbed at them with the corner of her towel, feeling ridiculous because he was twice her size. "No one could drown in that pool," she said, tetchy with relief that he'd finally shut up. "I happen to be the boss of that pool, see? And I wouldn't let it drown anyone." Ben looked so impressed that she started to show off. There was a wide step the width of the pool leading down into the shallower end. Shelley walked backwards and forwards across the step, kicking the water about. "I'm the boss of the pool," she crowed. "The water's a football. I'm Richmond playing against the pool, and I won. Look at that great goal I just kicked." She looked over her shoulder at Ben, and his face was bright with enchantment. "Hey, come on," she said impulsively, and held out her hand. The enchantment fled. "Ben drown!" he yelled, and his anger was like that of someone shaking the bars of a prison. "Not if I hold your hand, you big sook." Shelley stretched her hand further, and Ben slowly got up from the bench and took it. Shelley tugged him closer until he was standing ankle deep in the water. "Come on now," she ordered. "Walk up and down across the step, just like me. Come on, you can do it, and don't you dare say you'll drown." He followed her jerkily, eyes clamped shut so he wouldn't have to look at the water. Shelley walked him slowly across the step, but when they reached the side, he snatched his hand away, darted back to the bench, and pulled his feet up under him. Shelley decided wrathfully to leave him there, ignore him, and get on with her swimming, but then thought of his atrocious and persistent singing. She couldn't stand that again. She held out her hand and coaxed him back onto the step. She walked him back and forwards across the width of the pool, over and over. She was stubbornly determined to make him do it on his own, without holding her hand. It took an hour and a half. At the end of that time, the bones in her hand felt cracked, but Ben was walking backwards and forwards across the step, ankle deep in water, all by himself. "Ben not drowned yet," he said in awe. "No worse luck," Shelley said wearily, flexing her hand to get rid of the stiffness. "But if you want to look like that guy in the picture, you'll have to find yourself a pair of bathers." That's the end of chapter 4. So with a little bit of coaxing, Shelley has got Ben walking across the pool. Really big difference from the end of chapter 3. So in chapter 5 we're going to see if that takes off. Silkstone, have a really lovely day tomorrow. Hope you get a little bit of sunshine and get some great fun out of your home learning. See you tomorrow for chapter 5.